Welcome back to Easy English Talk Podcast.
Have you ever noticed how exhausting it feels when you keep defending your choices to everyone around you? Like you're constantly on trial explaining why you did this or didn't do that. It's draining, and today we're going to talk about why that happens and how to stop it. Hello everyone, and welcome to Easy English Talk Podcast. I'm Ryan, and with me, as always, is Priya. Today, we are discussing why you should stop explaining yourself.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. And Ryan, this topic hits hard because so many of us do this without even realizing it. We explain ourselves constantly like we owe everyone an answer.
Exactly, and that's where the problem starts. We feel this pressure to justify everything we do, our decisions, our feelings, even our preferences.
It's like we're seeking permission from others to live our own lives. And the strange part is, most people don't actually care as much as we think they do, but we keep explaining anyway.
Right, and I think it starts early. As children, we're taught to explain ourselves to parents and teachers. That's normal. But as adults, we never stop doing it.
That's such a good point. When you're young, explaining helps you learn responsibility and consequences, but somewhere along the way, it becomes a habit we can't shake off.
And then it becomes this automatic response. Someone asks why you made a choice, and you immediately launch into a long explanation, even when it's really none of their business.
Yes, and sometimes people aren't even asking for an explanation. They just make a comment and we feel this urge to defend ourselves. It's like we're wired to justify our existence.
So let's break this down. Why do we feel this need to explain ourselves so much? What's actually happening inside us when we do this?
I think a big part of it is fear of judgment. We worry that if we don't explain, people will think badly of us. They might misunderstand our intentions or question our character.
That fear is real. We want to be liked and accepted. So we think that explaining ourselves will help others see us in a good light.
But here's the problem with that thinking. When you constantly explain yourself, you actually appear less confident. People start to sense that you're not sure about your own decisions.
That's interesting, because we think explaining will make us look better, but it often has the opposite effect. It makes us seem uncertain or like we're seeking approval.
Exactly. And confident people don't over-explain. They make their choices and move forward. They're comfortable with the fact that not everyone will agree with them.
So the first problem is this fear of judgment. We're so worried about what others think that we tie ourselves in knots trying to justify everything. But what else drives this behavior?
I think it's also about people-pleasing. Many of us were raised to be agreeable and to avoid conflict, so explaining becomes a way to smooth things over and keep everyone happy.
Right. We don't want anyone to be upset with us, so we explain our decisions hoping it will prevent any negative feelings. It's like emotional damage control.
But the truth is, you can't please everyone. No matter how much you explain, some people will still disagree or disapprove. That's just part of life.
And by trying to please everyone, you end up exhausting yourself. You're constantly monitoring how others might react to your choices. It's mentally draining.
It really is, and it takes away your energy from things that actually matter. Instead of focusing on your goals or happiness, you're focused on managing everyone else's opinions. That's no way to live.
Another issue is that over-explaining can actually invite more criticism. When you give people a long explanation, you're giving them more material to pick apart. They might find holes in your reasoning or question your motives even more.
That's so true. The more you say, the more ammunition you give someone who wants to argue with you. Sometimes silence or a simple answer is much more powerful.
Think about it this way. If someone asks why you chose a certain career path, and you give a short answer, the conversation moves on. But if you give a 10-minute explanation, they might start questioning every detail.
And before you know it, you're defending yourself even more. It becomes this endless cycle. The more you explain, the more they question, and the more you feel you need to explain again.
So we've established the main problem. We over-explain because we fear judgment, we want to please others, and we think it will protect us. But it actually makes us look less confident and opens us up to more criticism.
Now the big question is, how do we break this pattern? How do we stop explaining ourselves without feeling guilty or rude? Because that's what holds people back. They think staying quiet means being disrespectful.
Let's start with the first solution. You need to get comfortable with the fact that you don't owe everyone an explanation. Your life, your choices, your reasons are yours alone.
This is huge. You're an adult with your own mind and values. You get to decide what's right for you without needing permission or validation from others.
And the people who truly respect you will accept your decisions. They might not always agree, but they won't demand a detailed explanation. They trust that you know what you're doing.
On the other hand, people who constantly question you or make you feel guilty might not have your best interests at heart. Sometimes they're just projecting their own insecurities or trying to control you. You don't need to engage with that.
So, the mindset shift is this. Remind yourself daily that you're not on trial. You don't need to defend your choices to anyone unless you genuinely want to share.
And even then, sharing should come from a place of openness, not obligation. There's a big difference between explaining because you want to connect with someone and explaining because you feel pressured. One is healthy, the other is exhausting.
Okay, so the first step is changing your mindset. But what about the practical side? What do you actually say when someone asks you to explain yourself?
Great question, and this is where people get stuck. They know they shouldn't over-explain, but they don't know what to say instead, so they fall back into old habits.
The key is to keep your answers short and clear. You can acknowledge the question without diving into a long explanation. For example, if someone asks why you turned down a job offer, you can simply say, "It wasn't the right fit for me."
That's perfect because it's honest, but doesn't invite further questioning. You're not being rude or dismissive, you're just setting a boundary. If they push for more details, you can politely say, "I'd rather not go into it, but I appreciate your interest."
And notice the tone here. You're calm, respectful, and confident. You're not apologizing or acting defensive, which makes a huge difference.
Right, because when you're apologizing or seem nervous, people sense that and sometimes push harder. But when you're calm and firm, most people will back off. They realize you're not going to budge, so they move on.
Another helpful phrase is, "I've thought about it, and this is what works for me." It's simple, it shows you've considered your decision, and it leaves no room for debate. You stating a fact, not opening a discussion.
I love that phrase because it also subtly reminds the other person that this is your choice to make. You're not asking for their approval or input. You're just informing them of your decision.
Exactly. And sometimes people ask questions not because they genuinely care about your reasoning, but because they're making conversation. They don't actually want a long answer. A short response is all they need.
That's such a good point. We often assume people are deeply interested in our explanations when really they're just being polite or curious. By over-explaining, we're actually making the conversation awkward and unnecessarily long.
So let's talk about boundaries for a moment. Because part of stopping the over-explaining habit is setting clear boundaries with people. And that can feel uncomfortable at first.
Boundaries are essential, though. They protect your time, energy, and mental peace. When you set boundaries, you're saying, "I respect myself enough to not let others drain me."
And setting boundaries doesn't mean you're being cold or unfriendly. It just means you're choosing what you will and won't engage with. You can still be kind and respectful while protecting your space.
Absolutely, and boundaries actually improve your relationships. When you're clear about your limits, people know where they stand with you. There's no confusion or resentment building up over time.
For example, if a family member constantly questions your life choices, you can say something like, "I appreciate your concern, but I'm happy with my decision." Then change the subject. You're acknowledging them without engaging in a debate.
And if they keep pushing, you can repeat your boundary calmly. Like I said, I'm comfortable with my choice, and I'd rather not discuss it further. Most people will get the message after 1 or 2 attempts.
Now, what about situations where explaining yourself actually is necessary? Because there are times when a reasonable explanation is expected, like at work or in serious personal matters. How do you handle that?
Good question. And yes, context matters. If your boss asks why you missed a deadline, that's a legitimate question that deserves a clear answer. In professional settings, explanations are part of accountability.
Right. So the difference here is intent. Are you explaining because it's genuinely required, or are you doing it out of fear or habit? In work situations, a brief factual explanation is appropriate.
For instance, I missed the deadline because of an unexpected family emergency, and I'll have it completed by tomorrow morning. That's clear, honest, and professional. You're not over-explaining or making excuses, just stating facts.
And even in personal relationships, there are moments when explaining helps build trust. If you cancel plans with a close friend, a quick explanation shows you respect their time. But again, keep it simple and sincere.
The key difference is that these explanations are given willingly and appropriately. You're not being interrogated or pressured. You're choosing to communicate because it strengthens the relationship or fulfills a responsibility.
So the rule of thumb is this. If explaining serves a clear purpose and feels right to you, go ahead. But if you're explaining out of guilt, fear, or obligation to someone who has no real stake in your decision, stop.
That's a really helpful guideline. It puts you back in control of the conversation. You decide when and how much to share based on what feels authentic and necessary, not based on someone else's demands.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the mental freedom that comes with this change. Because when you stop over-explaining, something really powerful happens inside you. You start to feel lighter, more confident, and more at peace.
Absolutely. And that's because you're no longer carrying the weight of everyone else's opinions. You're not constantly second-guessing yourself or worrying how others perceive you. You're just being yourself.
And that confidence shows in everything you do. Your body language changes, your voice becomes steadier, and people actually start respecting you more, because confidence is magnetic.
It's true. People are drawn to those who are comfortable in their own skin. When you stop apologizing for your choices and stop seeking approval, others sense that strength. They might not even realize it consciously, but they treat you differently.
Another benefit is that you save so much time and energy. Think about all the mental energy that goes into crafting the perfect explanation or rehearsing what you'll say. When you let that go, you free up space for things that actually matter.
And you also start attracting better relationships. When you stop over-explaining, you filter out people who don't respect your boundaries. The ones who remain are those who accept you as you are.
That's such an important point. By being yourself and not bending over backwards to please everyone, you naturally find your true circle. The people who stick around are the ones who genuinely care about you, not about controlling you.
And let's be honest, life is too short to spend it justifying your every move to people who don't really matter. You have dreams, goals, passions, and limited time. Why waste it explaining yourself to critics?
Now, I know some people listening might be thinking, this sounds great, but what if I feel guilty? Because guilt is a big reason people keep explaining themselves. They worry they're being selfish or inconsiderate.
That guilt is often rooted in old programming. Maybe you were taught that putting yourself first is wrong, or that you always need to consider others' feelings above your own. But that's not healthy or sustainable.
You can care about others and still prioritize your own needs. In fact, when you take care of yourself first, you're actually better equipped to support the people you love. You can't pour from an empty cup, as the saying goes.
And saying no or not explaining yourself doesn't make you selfish, it makes you self-aware. You're recognizing your limits and honoring them, which is a sign of maturity, not selfishness.
So if you feel guilty, ask yourself why. Is it because you've genuinely hurt someone, or is it because you're not meeting someone else's expectations? If it's the latter, that's their issue, not yours.
And remember, you're allowed to disappoint people. You're not responsible for everyone's happiness. Your primary responsibility is to live a life that feels true and meaningful to you.
That's freeing to hear, isn't it? You're allowed to disappoint people. You're allowed to make choices that others don't understand or agree with.
Because at the end of the day, it's your life. You're the one who has to live with your decisions, not them. So make choices that align with your values, not theirs.
Let's talk about another important aspect, which is learning to trust yourself. A lot of over-explaining comes from not trusting your own judgment. You feel like you need external validation to confirm you're doing the right thing.
That's so true, and it's a vicious cycle. The more you seek validation, the less you trust yourself. And the less you trust yourself, the more validation you need.
So, how do you break that cycle? You start by making small decisions and sticking with them, even if others question you. Maybe it's something simple like choosing a restaurant or picking a weekend activity.
And when someone asks why you chose that option, resist the urge to over-explain. Just say, I thought it would be nice, and leave it at that. Notice how it feels to stand by your choice without justifying it.
It might feel uncomfortable at first, like you're being rude or dismissive, but over time, you'll realize that most people don't actually care as much as you think, and your confidence will grow with each small win.
Exactly. And as you build that confidence, you'll find it easier to make bigger decisions without seeking approval. You'll start trusting your instincts and your ability to handle the consequences of your choices. That's real empowerment.
Another helpful practice is to reflect on past decisions and acknowledge what went well. Often, we focus on mistakes and second-guess ourselves, but when you look back at good choices you made, you realize you're more capable than you give yourself credit for.
That's a great exercise. Write down a few decisions you made that worked out well, whether in your career, relationships, or personal life. Remind yourself that you have good judgment and that you don't need constant validation.
And even when you make a mistake, that doesn't mean you should lose trust in yourself. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is that you learn from them and keep moving forward.
Right. Mistakes are part of growth. They don't mean you're incapable or that you need to explain yourself to everyone. They just mean you're human and you're trying.
Now, let's address a question some people might have. What if someone gets upset or offended because you won't explain yourself? How do you handle that without feeling bad?
This is where boundaries really come into play. If someone gets upset because you're not over-explaining, that's their emotional reaction, not your responsibility. You can be compassionate without sacrificing your peace.
You might say something like, I understand you're upset, but this is my decision and I'm comfortable with it. You're acknowledging their feelings without taking responsibility for managing them. That's healthy.
And honestly, if someone gets genuinely angry because you won't justify yourself, that's a red flag. It suggests they're trying to control or manipulate you. People who respect you won't react that way.
Exactly. And you don't owe an explanation to someone who's trying to manipulate you. In fact, engaging with them only gives them more power over you. The best response is often calm, polite firmness.
And if they keep pushing, you can disengage entirely. You don't have to participate in every argument someone tries to start. You can walk away, end the conversation, or change the subject.
That's a powerful reminder. You always have the option to walk away from conversations that drain you. You're not trapped, even if it feels that way sometimes.
And walking away doesn't mean you're weak or avoiding conflict. It means you're choosing your peace over proving a point. That's strength, not weakness.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about why people over-explain, the problems it causes, and several strategies to stop doing it. Let's bring this all together with some final thoughts.
First and foremost, remember that you're not obligated to explain yourself to everyone. Your life, your choices, your reasons are yours. You get to decide who you share them with and how much you share them.
Second, practice giving short, clear answers instead of long explanations. Keep your responses simple and confident. Don't apologize for your decisions or open the door for unnecessary debate.
Third, set boundaries with people who constantly question or criticize you. You can do this kindly but firmly. Protect your mental energy and peace by not engaging with every challenge.
Fourth, learn to trust yourself and your judgment. Build confidence by making small decisions and standing by them without seeking validation. Over time, this trust will grow stronger.
And finally, let go of the guilt. You're allowed to disappoint people, and you're allowed to prioritize your own needs. That doesn't make you selfish. It makes you self-aware and healthy.
When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your power. You stop living for other people's approval and start living for yourself. And that's when life becomes truly fulfilling.
Because at the end of the day, the only person you need to answer to is yourself. Are you living in a way that feels authentic and true to who you are? That's the only question that really matters.
And when you can say yes to that question, everything else falls into place. You become more confident, more peaceful, and more content. You stop wasting energy on things that don't matter and focus on what does.
It's a journey, though. You won't stop over-explaining overnight. But every time you catch yourself and choose not to justify your choices, you're making progress.
And that progress adds up over time. You'll look back in a few months and realize how much lighter and freer you feel, how much more respect you have for yourself, and how much more others respect you too.
So if there's one thing we want you to take away from this conversation, it's this. You don't owe anyone an explanation for being yourself. You don't need permission to live your life the way you choose.
Your choices are valid, your feelings are valid, and your reasons are yours alone. Stand by them with confidence and grace, and let go of the exhausting habit of over-explaining.
It's one of the most freeing things you can do for yourself. And once you experience that freedom, you'll wonder why you ever spent so much time justifying yourself in the first place. It's truly liberating.
Absolutely. And we hope this conversation has given you some clarity and practical tools to start making that change. It's not about being rude or closed off. It's about respecting yourself and setting healthy boundaries.
And remember, the people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. They won't demand constant explanations or make you feel guilty for your choices. They'll trust you and support you.
Everyone else? Well, their opinions don't define you. You define you. And that's a beautiful thing to embrace.
So go ahead and practice this. Start small, notice the difference it makes, and keep building from there. You've got this, and we're rooting for you.
Before we wrap up, we want to thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We really appreciate you spending this time with us. We hope you found this discussion helpful and that it gave you something valuable to think about.
If you enjoyed this topic, we have many other conversations that you might find interesting as well. We talk about things like building confidence, setting boundaries, and living a more intentional life. So feel free to explore those episodes too.
And if you have any topics you'd like us to discuss in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Your feedback and suggestions mean a lot to us. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, your life is yours to live. Don't spend it explaining yourself to people who don't matter. We'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye, and remember, your life is yours to live. Don't spend it explaining yourself to people who don't matter. We'll talk to you soon.